You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
The IT world used to be simpler. You only had to secure and manage environments that you controlled. Then came new technologies and new ways to work. Now, employees, apps, and networks are everywhere. This means poor visibility, security gaps, and added risk. That's why Cloudflare created the first-ever connectivity cloud. Visit cloudflare.com to protect your business everywhere you do business. Western authorities ID a key member of Evil Corp, a major U.S. water utility, suffers a cyber attack. ODNI warns of influence campaigns targeting presidential and congressional races. A California deepfakes law gets blocked. Europol leads a global effort against human trafficking. Trinity ransomware targets the healthcare industry. Qualcomm patches a critical zero-day in its DSP service. ADT discloses a breach of encrypted employee data. North Korean hackers use stealthy Powershell exploits. On our Threat Vector segment, David Moulton and his guests tackle the pressing challenges of securing operational technology environments. And machine learning pioneers win the Nobel Prize. It's Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your Cyberwire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. It is great to have you with us. Western authorities have identified Russian national Alexander Ryzenkov as a key member of the Evil Corp cybercrime group and a Lockbit affiliate, charging him with using BitPaymer ransomware. This revelation came alongside multiple arrests related to the Lockbit scheme, including suspected money launderers in the UK and a Lockbit developer in France. A bulletproof hosting provider was also arrested in Spain. Ryzenkov extorted U.S. businesses by encrypting their data and demanding ransom. Authorities also linked former Russian intelligence officer Eduard Bendersky to Evil Corp, accusing him of protecting the hackers from internal Russian authorities. In response, the U.S., UK, and Australia imposed financial sanctions on several individuals and entities linked to these cybercriminals. Lockbit's operations, while still active, have been significantly weakened following law enforcement seizures of its infrastructure. Officials believe many of Lockbit's affiliates have moved to alternative platforms, as some data leaks on its darknet site are outdated or falsified. The investigation also revealed that Lockbit's system allowed the group to retain victim data despite promising to delete it. American Water, the largest regulated water utility in the U.S., revealed a cyber attack that led to the temporary suspension of customer billing. The company, serving over 14 million people in 14 states, detected unauthorized activity and took immediate protective measures, including shutting down certain systems. Despite the breach, operations and facilities were unaffected. The company is investigating the attack with law enforcement and assured customers they won't face late fees while systems are down. American Water operates over 500 systems across 1,700 communities. It's 1 month before the U.S. presidential election, and the U.S. intelligence community is monitoring foreign interference from Russia, China, and Iran. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence yesterday warned of influence campaigns targeting both the presidential and congressional races. These efforts aim to undermine trust in the election, particularly if the results are contested. Russia and Iran are focused on shaping voters' preferences toward specific candidates, with Russia favoring Donald Trump and Iran supporting Kamala Harris. China, while not interfering in the presidential race, is targeting congressional candidates perceived as threats to its interests, especially regarding Taiwan. Russia is also attempting to sway congressional races by encouraging opposition to pro-Ukraine policies. The ODNI is monitoring additional influence operations from other foreign actors, including Cuba. A U.S. federal judge has blocked most of California's new law aimed at restricting election-related deepfakes, citing free speech concerns. The law, signed on September 17th, required online platforms to remove or label AI-generated content 120 days before an election. Plaintiff Chris Coles, who creates political videos using AI, challenged the law, arguing it violated First Amendment rights. U.S. District Judge John A. Mendez agreed, granting a preliminary injunction, stating the law acted as a blunt tool that stifled free expression. While Mendez rejected most of the law, he upheld a provision requiring audio-only manipulated content to include periodic audible disclosures. California Governor Gavin Newsom's office expressed confidence in the regulation, saying it protects elections while preserving free speech, and pointed to similar laws in other states. Last month, global police forces collaborated in a Europol-led digital operation to identify human trafficking suspects and victims. The Impact Hackathon involved 27 countries, including 19 EU states and others like the UK, Brazil, and Ukraine. Over 4 days, 76 experts focused on detecting online trafficking activities involving legal business structures, social networks, cryptocurrency, and gaming platforms. Investigators checked 252 entities, identifying 16 suspected traffickers and 60 potential victims. A dark web discovery revealed traffickers offering victims for sale or hire, with individuals priced between $800 and $60,000. Additionally, the operation targeted exploitation of Ukrainian refugees and uncovered disturbing e-pimping schemes. This crime-as-a-service involves online platforms offering courses to men on exploiting women through OnlyFans management. Human trafficking, often digitally enabled, continues to trap victims in forced labor, fraud, and sexual exploitation. A new ransomware strain called Trinity has targeted at least one U.S. healthcare entity, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. In an advisory, HHS warned that Trinity poses a significant threat to the healthcare sector, with tactics resembling other ransomware strains like Venus and 2023 Lock. First spotted in May 2024, Trinity has already affected 7 victims, including healthcare providers in the U.S. and UK. The ransomware encrypts files and demands payment in cryptocurrency within 24 hours, threatening to leak stolen data. It also scans networks to exploit vulnerabilities and spread. No decryption method is available. Trinity shares similarities in its code and ransom notes with Venus and 2023 Lock, suggesting possible collaboration among these threat actors. Qualcomm has released patches for a critical zero-day vulnerability in its digital signal processor service, affecting multiple chipsets. The flaw, reported by Google Project Zero and Amnesty International Security Lab, is caused by a use-after-free weakness, leading to memory corruption. Qualcomm warned that the vulnerability has been exploited in targeted attacks. Patches have been provided to OEMs with recommendations for immediate deployment. Qualcomm also fixed a high-severity issue in the WLAN Resource Manager. Home security company ADT revealed in a regulatory filing that a hacker compromised a third-party business partner's systems using stolen credentials to access ADT's network. The hacker exfiltrated encrypted internal employee data, but ADT believes customer information and security systems were not affected. ADT is working with federal law enforcement and has implemented countermeasures, though some disruptions occurred. The breach follows a previous incident in which hackers stole customer order information, attempting to sell it on the dark web in July. Powershell-based malware is a type of fileless malware that exploits Powershell to execute malicious scripts in memory, helping it evade detection by antivirus solutions. Recently, North Korean hackers, specifically the APT-37 group, launched a cyber campaign called Shrouded Sleep, targeting Southeast Asian countries, particularly Cambodia. The campaign begins with phishing emails containing malicious zip files disguised as PDFs or Excel documents. These trigger a sophisticated Powershell-based attack chain that deploys multiple payloads, including a backdoor called Veil Shell, enabling remote access to compromised systems. The malware uses advanced evasion techniques like extended sleep intervals and app domain manager hijacking to maintain stealth. It communicates with command and control servers via HTTPS, executing JavaScript to maintain persistence. Recommendations to prevent infection include avoiding unsolicited file downloads, monitoring the Windows registry, and using endpoint logging tools like Sysmon. Coming up after the break on our Threat Vector segment, David Moulton and his guests tackle the pressing challenges of securing operational technology environments. Stay with us. When it comes to ensuring your company has top-notch security practices, things can get complicated fast. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and more, saving you time and money. With Vanta, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Our listeners can claim a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber for $1,000 off Vanta. And now, a word from our sponsor, Cortex. Security teams face a barrage of more security tools create more complexity. More devices need protection. More specialized focus areas create more silos. The security landscape is changing fast. How can security operations transform to meet current threats? Cortex by Palo Alto Networks consolidates SecOps tools into an integrated platform and helps organizations stop threats at scale with AI, automation, and analytics. Learn more at paloaltonetworks.com/Cortex. On this week's excerpt from the Threat Vector podcast, host David Moulton is joined by his guests to tackle the pressing challenges of securing operational technology environments.
75% of industrial operators experience a cyber attack in their OT environments. We really need to dispel the myth that such attacks are rare in OT. On the contrary, they're terribly common, just like they are in IT. And for sure, the research shows that the majority of operators have experienced an attack on their OT, and this on a monthly basis.
Welcome to Threat Vector, the Palo Alto podcast, where we discuss pressing cybersecurity threats and resilience and uncover insights into the latest industry trends. I'm your host, David Moulton, Director of Thought Leadership. Today, I'm talking to Chung Huan, VP of Product Management at Palo Alto Networks, and Michaela Menting, Senior Research Director at ABI Research. In this episode, we're going to explore the critical topic of OT security, or operational technology. Michaela Menting, Chung Huan, welcome to Threat Vector. Excited to have you here today.
Thanks, David. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thanks, David. Nice to be here.
Cheng, can you provide a high-level overview of the most prevalent OT threats we're seeing from our vantage point here at Palo Alto Networks?
Sure, David. Before we talk about the OT threat, I think it's important for us to understand what's going on in these OT industries across manufacturing, energy, and utility. On the business side, we're seeing profound digital transformation that is driving fundamental change of the underlying network. This could be Industrial 4.0, smart manufacturing, remote operation, adoption of 5G and cloud migration. So all of these are really dramatically increase the threat surface in the OT environment. So these legacy vulnerable OT assets that are used to be air-gapped now are getting increasingly exposed to IT and cloud. So with that, no wonder we're seeing a lot more OT threats in the industrial organizations. So some of them are even becoming worse in terms of shutting down OT operations. In our recent survey to about 18,000 industrial organizations, we see about almost 70% of them have experienced one cyber attack in the last year, and unfortunately, 1 out of 4 experienced the shutdown of the operation. So based on our understanding and the survey, the top threats can be ransomware continue to be a top concern and top threat in the OT environment. Unsanctioned remote connection is another one. Also in different parts of the world, I just came back from Europe. Nation-state attack is also a big concern.
Michaela, Chung just walked us through some of the things that we're seeing here at Palo Alto Networks. I know you've got a different perspective from your vantage point as a researcher.
Yep.
Are you seeing other areas of high concern, other things that you would want to add into some of those most prevalent OT threats?
Yeah. I mean, what we're seeing is a kind of history repeating itself a little bit, right? We had, when IT environments started coming online, started being connected, we're in that same phase now with OT, but just 20 years later, right? We've been covering critical infrastructure and kind of industrial systems for a number of years, for a good decade at least. And those patterns are becoming much more common now, much more prevalent. Unfortunately, attacks against OT are very frequent, right? And Chung mentioned it, 75% of industrial operators experience a cyber attack in their OT environments. We really need to dispel the myth that such attacks are rare in OT. On the contrary, they're terribly common, just like they are in IT. And for sure, the research shows that the majority of operators have experienced an attack on their OT, and this on a monthly basis, right? So it's become recurring, and this repeated engagement. What it means is that threat actors they're able to achieve a frightening level of success, in their attacks. And Chung mentioned it. 1 in 4 operators had to shut down their operations last year. So that alone should put everyone on edge, right? It's a very high-level warning sign that something's not going right, and that we're not doing enough from a security perspective.
Cheng, what is it about OT environments that is causing them to be increasingly targeted by cyber threat actors?
Yeah, so David, if you look at these OT environment, on one side, for manufacturers, that's where they make their revenue in terms of critical infrastructure. That's where they're running mission-critical operations. That's why often it could be a high outcome target for attackers. So we can break it into a few buckets. One is really financially motivated, right? We just talked about for ransomware, it could be ranged to the tens of millions when you get hold of these OT assets and then use ransomware as a way to get financial motivation achieved. It could be for some of the high-tech manufacturing. This could be espionage to steal intellectual capital from that environment. On the other side, for critical infrastructures, we also see motivations in terms of nation-state or cyber terrorism that really create the impact in terms of critical infrastructure for political motivation.
How do IT-borne threats typically make their way into OT systems? This is honestly something that I've always been curious about.
Sure. Well, there's there's two, if you're looking at it from a very high level perspective, maybe there's two primary ways. One is, you could exploit vulnerabilities in industrial control systems, right? Build a 0-day around it, do some smart coding and maybe brute force your way in. But that's complex, requires a lot of skills. It's not everyone that can do that. The easier way and the very common way is through social engineering, unfortunately. And that is just immensely popular because it works all the time. Not all the time, but it works more often than not, right? You have email compromise, you have phishing, and threat actors are able to obtain credentials that they then use for remote access. And quite often, it starts in the IT space, and then they escalate their privileges, and there's a lot of lateral movement that happens until they can hit, those OT assets. But I think increasingly you'll see some of that happen and target directly OT, right? So they won't even need to go through the IT space to get to those OT assets. So unfortunately today, it's still very much, kind of whacking someone over the head for the password rather than trying to, crowbar their way in through, an iron door or something like that. So social engineering, unfortunately, is highly prevalent and still highly successful, even against OT.
Cheng, what is the most important thing that a listener should remember from this conversation?
Actually, I'd like to highlight two things, if that's okay. I think one is really, in the light of all this trend, make sure that you work with your organization, work with your management to really have that top-down alignment to make OT security a key initiative. That's very important to get to that alignment, that IT-OT collaboration. Then from the technology side, right, it's really about make sure you gain the visibility of your OT environment, and then think about the platform approach to really provide that holistic visibility and security at the same time for multiple threat surfaces we're observing. So that's also very important for you to be able to scale for today and also for the future.
Michaela Chung, thank you for a great conversation today. I appreciate you sharing all of your insights on OT security and the convergence that you've seen between OT and IT, and some of the insights that you brought forward from your great report.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. It was great being here, and I think we had a great discussion.
Thanks for listening to this segment of the Threat Vector podcast. If you want to hear the whole conversation, you can find the show in your podcast player. Just search for Threat Vector by Palo Alto Networks. Each week, I interview leaders from across our industry and from Palo Alto Networks to get their insights on cybersecurity, the threat landscape, and the constant changes we face. See you there.
Don't forget, you can find the complete Threat Vector podcast right here on the N2K Cyberwire Network or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Around every entry point and every clever attacker, Vectra sees the attacks others can't. How? Vectra has AI on it. Vectra's AI attack signal intelligence tells security teams where to focus, what matters. It wades through thousands of individual threat events so you don't have to. Attackers infiltrating your network? Vectra has AI on it. Attackers compromising your identities? Vectra has AI on it. Vectra AI, the integrated signal powering your XDR. Visit vectra.ai/showme to learn more. That's vectra.ai/showme to learn more. And finally, the 2024 Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to John Hopfield and Geoffrey Hinton for their pioneering work in machine learning, which laid the foundation for today's AI advancements. Hinton, often called the godfather of AI, and Hopfield, a Princeton professor, developed artificial neural networks based on the brain's structure, enabling machines to learn from experience rather than following preset instructions. Their discoveries, including Hopfield's 1982 network and Hinton's Boltzmann machine, revolutionized AI, transforming fields like healthcare and space exploration. Hinton has expressed growing concern about the potential dangers of AI, even leaving his role at Google to raise awareness. While he acknowledges AI's incredible potential to improve productivity, he worries that AI could surpass human intelligence and become uncontrollable. Despite these concerns, Hinton remains proud of his work, recognizing both its promise and risks as AI continues to shape our future. Still, no Nobel Prize for podcasting. Priorities, people. Priorities. And that's the Cyberwire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your team smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Simone Petrella is our president. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Now a word from our sponsor, the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute, currently seeking qualified applicants for its innovative Master of Science in Security Informatics degree program. Study alongside world-class interdisciplinary experts and gain unparalleled educational, research, and professional experience in information security and assurance. Interested U.S. citizens should consider the National Science Foundation's CyberCorps Scholarship for Service program, which covers tuition, required fees, university-sponsored health insurance, and a $6,000 annual professional development allowance, as well as providing a $37,000 additional annual stipend. Apply for the scholarship and the spring semester by November 15th. Learn more at cs.jhu.edu/MSSI.